There are people who will tell you it was just a dog, that the grief will pass, that you can get another one, that it is time to move on. And there are people who have loved a dog deeply enough to know that every single one of those sentences is wrong. Not unkind, necessarily, just wrong. Because what happens between a human and a dog over years of shared mornings and ordinary evenings and 10,000 small moments that didn't seem important until they were over is not something that simply ends. Not completely. Not the way other things end. And this video is about why. Not as sentiment, not as comfort for comfort's sake, but as an honest examination of what the science, the psychology, and the oldest human wisdom traditions all seem to arrive at when they look at this question directly. Some bonds are not built to dissolve. The silence is not just absence, it is the removal of something that was woven into the fabric of daily life so completely that the fabric itself begins to unravel. Psychologists have a term for this: ambiguous loss. The grief of losing something whose significance the world refuses to fully validate, because the world will offer you bereavement leave for a human death, but not for a dog. And yet the neurological experience of grief is identical. The same brain regions activate, the same stress hormones flood the body.
The same sleep disruption occurs, the same intrusive thoughts, the same reaching for them before remembering they are gone. The intensity of grief is always proportional to the depth of the bond. And if the grief after losing a dog can be this profound, then the bond that preceded it was real in ways that our language has never been adequate to describe. Now here is where it gets remarkable, because the science of grief and memory suggests something that most people never fully consider. When you love something deeply, it changes your brain, literally, neurologically. The relationship you had with your dog created neural pathways in your brain that do not disappear when they die. Every routine you shared, every morning they woke you, every walk, every evening they settled beside you, every moment of eye contact, every time they pressed against you when the world felt hard, all of it created neural architecture in your mind. Connections between neurons that were built specifically around them, around their smell, their sound, their particular way of moving, their specific weight on your leg. And when they are gone, those pathways are still there, still firing, still expecting input that no longer comes. This is why you still hear them sometimes, a sound in the hallway that your brain interprets as their pause before reality corrects the signal. A shape in your peripheral vision that your neural pathways identify as them before your conscious mind catches up. A moment of reaching down to pet them before you remember. This is not delusion. This is not grief-induced madness.
This is your brain, which was literally restructured by years of loving them, continuing to run the programs it built around their presence. In a very real neurological sense, they are still in your brain, still shaping how you perceive the world, still present in the architecture of who you became by loving them. That is not nothing. That is not just a dog. That is one of the... Some presences are not built to disappear, and some dogs, the ones who lived closest to a human soul, may not truly leave at all. Let us start with the grief, because the grief is data. When a dog dies, the grief that follows is not a minor inconvenience. For millions of people around the world, it is one of the most devastating experiences of their lives. More intense, many report, than the loss of human relationships. Not because dogs matter more than people, but because the relationship with a dog is structurally different from almost every human relationship we have. Think about what your dog gave you. Presence without condition, attention without agenda, love without evaluation. No human relationship, no matter how beautiful, is entirely free of the weight of mutual expectation. Even the best human relationships carry the complexity of two egos, two needs, two sets of wounds navigating each other. A dog carries none of that. They simply show up, day after day, year after year, giving the same complete, uncomplicated devotion on the last day as they gave on the first. And when that disappears, when the bowl sits empty and the leash hangs still, and the particular sound of their paws on the floor is gone from the house, it's a profound form of loss that is somehow the most profound form of permanence available to a living being. And now the part that science approaches carefully, because there are cases, thousands of them, documented, reported by people who are not prone to mystical thinking, by veterinarians, by grief counselors, by scientists, by completely ordinary people who had no framework for what happened to them and no reason to fabricate it. Cases of people feeling the specific weight of their dog on the bed beside them, the familiar indentation, the familiar warmth, weeks after the dog died. Cases of people smelling their dog, their specific, particular, unmistakable scent in rooms the dog had not been in for months. Cases of other animals in the house, cats, other dogs, reacting to something invisible in the places the deceased dog used to inhabit, tracking something with their eyes.
Following something across the room. Responding to a presence that registers for them but not for human senses. Cases of the surviving dog going to their deceased companion's favorite spot and behaving as if engaging with something there. Tail wagging, play bow, soft vocalization directed at empty space. Are these grief responses? Possibly. Are they something else? The honest answer is that science does not yet have instruments sensitive enough to say with certainty. What it does say is this: consciousness is not fully understood. The relationship between mind and matter is not fully understood. The question of what persists after biological death is not settled science. It is an open question. And for thousands of years before science existed to ask it, human beings across every culture and every continent arrived at the same answer. Something remains. The ancient Egyptians did not merely love their dogs. They believed dogs served as guides between the living world and the world of the dead. Anubis, the god of death and the afterlife, wore the head of a dog. Not randomly, because dogs were observed to sense things humans could not, to react to presences humans could not perceive, to exist somehow on the threshold between what is visible and what is not. The Celtic traditions of Britain and Ireland believed that dogs were threshold guardians, beings who walked between worlds, whose loyalty was so complete it transcended the boundary of death itself.
Across Native American traditions, dogs appear consistently as spirit guides and soul companions, beings whose connection to their human was considered to continue beyond physical death. In ancient Greece, the dog was associated with Hecate, goddess of the crossroads, the liminal spaces, the places between one world and the next. Dogs were always at the threshold, always at the place where the visible world met whatever lies beyond it. And in Hindu tradition, the dog Swana accompanies the righteous soul on the journey after death, the loyal companion who does not abandon even at the final crossing. These are not primitive superstitions from people who didn't know better. These are the considered conclusions of thousands of years of human observation of one consistent truth. Dogs do not seem to follow the same rules as other living things when it comes to where presence ends. Here is something the researchers discovered that nobody expected. When a dog and their owner gaze into each other's eyes, both experience a surge of oxytocin,
the bonding hormone, the same hormone released between a mother and her newborn child. This surge happens in both directions simultaneously, human to dog, dog to human, a biological loop of bonding that mirrors the deepest human attachments. Now consider what that means over 10 or 15 years. 10 or 15 years of that loop activating. 10 or 15 years of mutual neurochemical bonding. 10 or 15 years of two nervous systems learning each other, synchronizing heart rates, matching breathing patterns, building a biological relationship so deep that the bodies themselves remember it. Your nervous system was shaped by your dog. Your stress response was regulated by your dog. Your sense of safety in the world was partly constructed around your dog's presence. And when they are gone, your nervous system is still looking for the signals it relied on, still waiting for the input that regulated it, still reaching for the presence that helped it know everything was okay. This is why the grief is physical. This is why it lives in the body, not just the mind. And this is why, in the quietest, most honest moments, many people report feeling that their dog is still somehow nearby. Not as a hallucination, not as wishful thinking, but as a real sensation, a warmth, a presence, a sense of being watched with love from somewhere just out of sight. 9 years at Shibuya Station, and Greyfriars Bobby, 14 years at the graveside. But there are quieter stories, less famous ones. Dogs who found their way back to their owner's home after being rehomed following a death, crossing distances that should have been impossible. Dogs who lay down on the grave of their owner and refused to eat, not for days, but for weeks, until they too were gone, making a choice, if we can call it that, to end their own biological story, rather than continue it in a world without the person they were built around. These are not stories of simple animal behavior. These are stories of a bond so complete that survival itself became secondary to loyalty. And if a dog can love that completely in life,
what makes us certain that death is enough to end it? This is for you. The grief you feel or felt is not disproportionate. It is not embarrassing. It is not something to apologize for or minimize or explain away. It is the accurate response to the loss of a genuine bond, one that your brain, your nervous system, and your entire biological architecture experienced as real, because it was real. And the moments when you still feel them, the warmth on the bed, the sound in the hallway, the sense of being watched with love, those moments are not madness. They may be your nervous system recognizing something it was built to recognize, or they may be something more, something older, something that human beings have been reporting for as long as they have been loving dogs and losing them, a presence that does not know how to leave because it was never built for leaving, a loyalty so deep it outlasted the body that carried it. If you still have your dog, this is for you too, because what you have right now, this ordinary day, this unremarkable evening, is the thing that becomes the ache, the presence that becomes the absence, the sound of pause that becomes the silence. And what this video has been saying from the beginning, what the science and the wisdom and the thousands of documented cases all point toward, is that the bond you are building right now, in these ordinary days, is not temporary. It goes somewhere. It changes you in ways that persist.
It creates a presence in your neural architecture that does not simply switch off. And perhaps in ways we do not yet have instruments to measure, it creates something in them too. Something that knows where you are. Something that has never stopped watching. Something that will be at the door again someday. In whatever form love takes when it has nowhere left to go but forward. There are people who will tell you it was just a dog, and you can smile at them now because you know something they don't. You know what 10 years of mutual oxytocin bonding does to a nervous system. You know what it means to have your neural architecture restructured by love. You know that across every culture, every century, every wisdom tradition that ever looked at this honestly, the same conclusion keeps arriving. Some bonds are not built to dissolve. Some presences are not built to disappear. And some dogs, the ones who gave everything, who waited, who pressed close, who watched you with those eyes that saw more than you ever knew they could see. Some dogs never truly leave. They just change their address, from the house you shared to the place inside you that was built by loving them. And they will be there. They have always been there, watching, staying, faithful to the very last thing they ever knew how to be. Yours.